university. It's in Central California, but I'm originally from Southern California in San Diego.
Yeah, an open house. How many people can go in there? Hold on. All right, up next is Andrea.
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name's Andrea. I'm from Puerto Rico. I'm a second-year grad student in the area of forensic chemistry and trace analysis. My undergrad is in chemistry, and I will be talking with you guys later on in the breakout rooms. So thank you for coming.
All right, Kathy.
Hey guys, I'm Dr. Conan. I've been here about 5 years as a forensic molecular biologist. I'm also the undergraduate program director. So I teach a lot of the undergraduate courses, and I usually teach, or sometimes I teach one of the forensic serology and DNA courses at the grad level. So hopefully I will see you guys in some fashion or another if you join us next year for a graduate program.
All right, let's see who's Manu.
Hi, my name is Dr. Alves, and I'm a forensic toxicologist. I'm the new faculty at the department, and I teach instrumentation and forensic chemistry. And my projects are totally dedicated to opioid research. And welcome, nice to have you here.
Thank you. Barbara.
Hi, hi, my name is Barbara Payne, and I am the physical administrator for the Department of Forensic Science. And I've been with VCU for approximately about 4 years, but with forensic science less than a year. So it's nice to meet everyone. If you have any questions regarding money matters, feel free to contact me. And if I can't answer your question, I will find the answer for you. So nice to meet everyone.
Thanks, Barbara. Amber?
Hi, I'm Amber. I'm a second-year grad student. My concentration is in drug chemistry, toxicology. I'm originally from Sacramento, California, but I did my bachelor's degree in Mitchell, South Dakota. I got my degree in biochemistry and my minor in forensic science and investigation.
Thanks, Amber. Matt?
Hi, I'm Matt Adrians. I'm a Woodstock. I did my undergrad at Western New England University up in Springfield College. Nice to see everybody.
Thanks, Matt. Dr. Peace.
Well, good morning, and thank you for joining us. Looking forward to meeting all of the perspectives and answering some questions for you. I'm Michelle Peace. I'm a forensic toxicologist, and I've been with the program since before it was a program. So I've been teaching since about 2000. Undergrad classes before we became a department. I left for a little bit to go manage a drug testing lab here in Richmond, Virginia, and had the great fortune of coming back. So I've been back for about 13 years, and I have a research lab with a really energetic team that helps me with a lot of different initiatives. So my big grant right now is studying how people who vape and vape e-liquids that have ethanol in them, how does that affect the evidentiary breath test and the standardized field sobriety test, and do we get the metabolites of ethanol in the fluids that we use for drug testing, which could be really bad for a lot of people who have to be drug tested. I also am chasing some questions around neonatal abstinence syndrome. So welcome to our first virtual graduate open house, and looking forward to meeting you.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, well, I think last but not least is Kara Lewis.
Hey, so I'm technically not a master's student, but I have been around the department for long enough to introduce myself. So I'm Kara Lewis. I'm an integrative life sciences PhD student. Technically, I'm in my 5th year. I did get my undergrad here and my bachelor's in forensic biology back in 2015. So I've been working in Dr. Sarah Williams' lab for the past going on 6 years. So hopefully not too much longer.
All right, thanks, Kara. Did I miss any faculty, staff, or current grad students? Did I miss anybody? All right, well, with that, before I turn it back over to Dr. Williams, I want to have a special thank you to her, Dr. Williams, as well as Joe Murphy for putting this together today. They've been working really hard. I think this is probably the highest pre-registration and maybe turnout that we've had in a very long time, if not ever. So we really appreciate the work that they did to pull this together for you all. And okay, so I will actually introduce our next speaker. You've already heard from Melinda Jackson, the director of the State Crime Lab, and she will expand on this, but I just want to mention that we have been around for a while with this master's program, but it was founded by a former director of the State Crime Lab system here in Virginia, Dr. Paul Ferrara. Our graduate program started, I think, around 1982. That's what we think. So it's been around for a very long time. And throughout that time, we've had a very strong relationship and partnership with the State Crime Lab here in the state of Virginia. So I will let Linda tell you more about that relationship. Linda?
All right. I'm going to actually stop my video and share. People come and learn about the department at VCU. They also get to come over to the lab and take a tour. So I thought I would share some pictures of the lab so that since you can't have that experience with the pandemic. And so let me try and do that. And if someone can let me know if they can see the slides, that would be lovely.
Linda.
Okay. All right. So we do have 4 laboratories in the state of Virginia, and our mission as the Department of Forensic Science is to provide the laboratory services in all criminal matters in the Commonwealth to support the criminal justice system. And so that is a little different than a lot of states that have local laboratories for the county and for sheriff's offices and that type of thing. And so all agencies, law enforcement in Virginia submit evidence to us. We have a couple other things that we also do, maintaining the data bank for the state of DNA samples of the convicted offenders and arrestees where that's allowed. And also we run the evidential breath testing program and provide crime scene training through our forensic training section to law enforcement. Since none of the scientists in our laboratory system go out to crime scenes. So that's where we get to make sure that the people that have the strong science backgrounds are working in the laboratory, and the people that are trained for crime scene are working crime scene. So we do have some unique strengths in the country. One being that we're an independent agency where we're not under law enforcement and we're not under the Attorney General's office. So we can be a standalone scientific laboratory where it is a lot easier to say that we don't have a dog in that fight when it comes to the investigative process or comes to the prosecution of criminal cases. Our job is to find the scientific answer from the evidence that was submitted and report that, and then be able to explain it in court. We are accredited and have been since 1989 to the international standard. I guess to the international standard, it's only been since 2009, but have been accredited overall since 1989. And we do have all of our quality manual, our technical procedures, so like our controlled substances manual or our DNA manual, our training manuals. If you're interested in seeing what those look like for a laboratory of, you know, how things are done, those are posted on the internet so that anyone is able to see them. So we do have in the state, we have 319 current employees, and I have listed here on the slide which disciplines we have in each of our 4 laboratories. So some of the laboratories are bigger than others. The central laboratory is the one in Richmond. Eastern is in Norfolk. Northern is in Manassas, near the George Mason campus in Manassas, and then Western is in Roanoke. Whoops. And so we own and maintain our 4 laboratory facilities, and in each one of our facilities is also the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. In Virginia, they're under the Department of Health since they are doctors, but since we work together on evidence and need to sometimes be able to go over and help them print a body or something like that, it's very handy to be in the same building. And so the different counties are each assigned to a laboratory. And so the map at the bottom kind of shows which counties, you know, would submit to the Western lab, the Central lab, and the Eastern lab, and so forth. So we have it structured so that scientists, since once the scientists do the analysis or examination in a case, they do a lot of times have to support that examination by testifying in court as to the results of their analysis and what they did. We try and make it so that no one has to travel more than 3 hours to get to court. And that works pretty well, except for that very tip of the western part of Virginia, which is just far from everyone. And so they have a little extra driving to do from the Roanoke lab sometimes. So just as a little bit of a virtual tour, all of our buildings you can see on the left are locked, and you can only come in once you've identified yourself and explained, you know, what your purpose is for being there with the little camera. And you can come in, and we have a check-in area, which is the middle picture. So if you take a class that is scheduled in our building or taught in our building, you would go to that glassed-in area and you would sign in for the day, because it's important that we know who's been in the laboratory and who is in the laboratory. So law enforcement, when they come in to deliver evidence, they would then go and to our evidence receiving folks in the right-hand picture. And the evidence, once it's received into our system, goes and lives in our evidence vault. And the only people that have access to our evidence vault are the people who work in the evidence receiving section. I'm the director of the whole department, and I don't have access to this vault. I don't want access to this vault. I only want those folks that work in there to have access. So to get evidence out, that cart right there in the middle picture is getting ready to go and take a bunch of firearms evidence to the firearms section. And so we have folks that do those evidence transfers within the laboratory. It's obviously really important in the laboratory to keep your chain of custody intact, where it's documented everyone who has physically had custody of the evidence. And so the evidence can go up and live in the administrative storage section within this section. So the picture on the right is the firearms in the central laboratory, their administrative storage. And some sections have personal evidence storage where each person has their own storage, and I'll show you that in a minute. So I have a slide for each one of the disciplines. This first one is our digital and multimedia evidence section. The pictures on the bottom left are of our shielding room, because it's really important when we have mobile phones and such come in.
Just the tour, babe.
for examination that no one can erase their phone from afar. So those, all that kind of evidence goes into the shielding room so that it has no access to signal. So in controlled substances, the two biggest sections we had with the most scientists are controlled substances or cease drugs and DNA. Both right now in the state have 61 forensic scientist positions. And so the top is our instrument room. Most of the drug analysis is confirmed with a GCMS, also with the FTIR, and we use a direct analysis in real-time TOF, or time of flight mass spectrometer, for screening as well. This is a section where people have individual storage, and drugs are one of those, is the only type of evidence where the evidence itself is the crime. And so that is kept particularly securely. So this person down at the bottom, each person has their own work area where they do their sampling and that type of thing. And then once the evidence is in auto sampler files, we can take it over and to the instrument room. This is one of the areas where there is a large section within the laboratory where the drug analysis VCU class is taught, and the laboratory is taught in the crime lab, so that when you're using the instruments, you're using instruments that are actually used for casework. And so you know that they're up to date and using proper methods, that type of thing. And also we can actually use real controlled substances in the laboratory because we have the proper DEA licenses to do so. Trace evidence, you can see there on the left, the list of subdisciplines that we do within the trace evidence section. It's varied and they do a lot of different stuff. And so just some pictures here, we've got Tad there in the blue shirt leaning against the X-ray diffractometer, which is used for powders. You can see a workstation that each examiner would have. Josh Kruger, who also teaches in this program, he's an expert, especially in fibers and such. He is there at the IDFS working on primer residue. And then the picture on the left is the ovens that are used for sampling ignitable liquids or fibery evidence. Whoops. In forensic biology, here's a list of all the different types of chemistries and instruments that we use. We do have a research scientist and a research section in our forensic biology area. And our scientist in that area, Susan Greenspoon, has hosted quite a few interns over the year. So that's one area where there are normally internships available. Let's see. And so each examiner does have a work area, and the picture in the middle is the biomech robot that we utilize in both the databank section and in casework to do a lot of the initial sample preparation. And then we have separated areas, little rooms for where the 3500s are kept so that the air handling is separate for contamination purposes. In the data bank, we actually have the oldest data bank, state data bank in the country. And there are states that, like California, that have more samples in their data bank now because they are huge, but we are the oldest, and we provide the kits for buccal swab sampling for everyone so that we can have those samples analyzed in an automated fashion. And we keep those samples forever. We have a couple rooms filled with these boxes of samples. And that's because every time that there is a hit to someone that is in the state data bank, we go back and get that card and we rerun and develop the profile from that kit and do a manual comparison to make sure that everything is good and matches up before we would report any hit from the data bank. We're actually one of the few state laboratories that also do mitochondrial DNA. We have 3 examiners that work in that area, and we use that mostly for things like unidentified remains and samples that have very poor quality for regular STR. In Firearms and Toolmarks, we have 27 forensic scientist positions statewide, and each examiner has a comparison microscope that they use. You can see the examiner there on the bottom left. This is where Stephanie Walcott, that introduced herself earlier, worked for many years. And then on the right is the toolmark area where you could maybe work on a firearm or something like that. In each of our laboratories, we have a bullet recovery tank and a shooting range so that we're able to do that in-house. We have a reference collection of both ammunition and firearms. And I thought there was another slide for that, but there's not. So that's always a big area on the tour because it's neat when people can actually go and watch people shoot. Latent prints, we use all of our comparisons are now done electronically. So you can see the Mitochondrial system there on the bottom right. And it allows for all of the areas on a latent print to be marked so that you can see in your case file exactly what you were looking at to make a conclusion, which is a great thing as we've moved into electronic note-taking in that area. You can see in the left-hand picture, the cabinets that have the brown rims around them. Those are large superglue chambers where the superglue fumes can come into contact with evidence to develop the latent prints on different evidence. For impressions, we do both footwear and tire impressions. That sink that's there in the picture on the left is a sink that's big enough for a big truck tire. It is a very strange shaped sink that most people would not have in their house. And so we just have actually 3 examiners in the state that do footwear and tire impressions. This is not an area where we get a lot of requests in comparison to latent prints. And toxicology, we have 33 forensic scientists and toxicologists. In our state, we have both forensic scientists that do the analytical work and can testify to that work that was done, and toxicologists who can do the analytical work, but also have a PhD and can testify to the effects on the body in court. And so we do samples, all the postmortem samples for the medical examiner in Virginia. We also do the blood samples, driving under the influence of alcohol or drugs, and then the other criminal investigations such as drug-facilitated sexual assault. And so just a few pictures of folks in the toxicology section. Most of our methods we have moved to LC triple quads for quantitation and identification of compounds. We have still a few methods on GCMS, and we have purchased LC QTOFs in each of the laboratories, and we are still working on implementing those. We do also have a toxicology research area with a PhD chemist who leads research in toxicology. Toxicology has been an area with all of the different drugs that have been coming out over the years, with all the different synthetic drugs, synthetic opioids, synthetic cathinones. It has really been an area with a lot of change, both in the compounds and in the kind of moving everything from GC and GCMS over to LC methods. And lastly, I just wanted to show our evidential breath alcohol instrument. This is what is used for the people who choose just to give a breath sample and not have their blood drawn. Our forensic department, we own and operate and calibrate these, certify them, but we do not run the tests. We train over 6,000 officers in the state of Virginia to run the breath tests of folks that are pulled over for some kind of driving infraction. So hopefully you will never see one of those outside of our laboratory. So why am I telling you all this? I am telling you this because we have a long-standing relationship with VCU. I think I have the wrong date in here. Tracy says 1982. I definitely believe that she's probably right. I'm not actually sure where, I don't know. Anyway, I think she's probably right, 1982. And there have been times throughout the program where we have taught quite a few of the classes at our facility because the department, as it was growing, did not have appropriate laboratory space to be able to teach some of the laboratory classes. But the department has grown and has additional faculty and additional laboratory space, and so now there are just a few classes that are currently being taught at our laboratory, and those are listed here: the drug analysis, the pattern evidence, and the professional practices and expert testimony, which is the class that I have taught for the last several years with an attorney who has just a wealth of experience with both VCU and in every aspect of the criminal justice system, Mason Bird. And in that class, that's where the capstone experience is of having a mock trial or a moot court where you practice providing testimony. So, you know, it's really neat that you get to have experience working in an actually, you know, production forensic science laboratory. You get exposure to working forensic scientists who are aware of things that are, you know, that are hot button issues right now. And you get exposure to the analytical techniques that are used in everyday casework. And so I think it's a real neat relationship between our laboratory and VCU. And I hope that you will find it interesting as well and apply and come to graduate school at VCU. So thank you very much. And I hope that I actually did not run over. I went right on time. So I'm happy to answer any questions or we can continue on. Thanks so much, Sarah.
Thank you, Linda. It was perfect timing. Any questions for Linda?
Just have to figure out how to stop.
All right. Well, if we don't have any questions, thank you again, Linda. And we'll go ahead and get started into a discussion of the curriculum and admissions for the program. Sharing door. All right. So thank you again for joining us for our open house on the Master of Science in Forensic Science. Just to get started, I'm sure all of you know what forensic science is, as you're here for a reason, and hopefully your undergraduate preparation and your own external research has allowed you to understand what forensic science is, but it is simply application of science to the law. And there are a huge variety of different disciplines within the field. Some some of which are really not within our purview, and I'll talk about that as we go along. In our program, we're primarily focused on what we would consider the criminalistics, which would be what you would expect to see in a typical forensic crime laboratory. So that would be your chemical applications, the trace evidence, forensic toxicology and drug analysis, our biological applications, which would be DNA analysis and body fluid identification or forensic serology. And then specific specialty areas. So ballistics or firearms, tool marks, fingerprints and impressions, and then some other specialties that our faculty have, such as forensic entomology, which is insects and how they interact with evidence and bodies, forensic anthropology, which is the study of decomposed or skeletal remains, and then digital forensics, which we don't have here at the moment at VCU. Certainly, there are other areas in forensic science that I haven't covered here, and two of those major fields are forensic odontology, which you have to be a dentist first before you can specialize in forensic odontology, and then forensic medicine or forensic pathology. And for that, again, you have to go to medical school and then move into your pathology specialization. Now, in terms of a forensic scientist and what they do on a day-to-day, from day to day, it is a laboratory position. Most of your forensic scientists do not go out to the field and work crime scenes. Most of them, the evidence comes to them in the laboratory. There are a few exceptions, and there are some laboratories throughout the country who do have forensic science staff on call to go to crime scenes. But for the most part, your standard criminalistics forensic scientists don't go to the crime scene. In terms of the VCU Forensic Science Master's Program, we are focused on preparing you for a career in a forensic laboratory, whether that's in a federal, state, or local government laboratory or a private laboratory. We have alumni who have gone to all of those, and I'll have a really short list of where all of our alumni have gone. We do also prepare students for further graduate studies. We have many students who have gone on to PhD work in both the biology and chemistry and forensic analysis. We have students who have gone on to law school and medical school as well. So now, while that's not our primary goal, we do enjoy preparing students for further graduate work if they're interested in that. Our program is also FEPAC accredited. FEPAC stands for the Forensic Science Educational Program Accreditation Commission. It's been around an accrediting program since 2003, and their focus is to make sure that a forensic science program is preparing a scientist first and then applying that scientific background to forensic questions. So we want to make sure that crime laboratories are getting scientists that can specialize in forensic science, and not somebody who's had a lot of criminal justice coursework or psychology coursework, for example, and then moving into a science-based position, because a forensic scientist is a scientist first. As an aside, we have had several faculty members and to serve on the FEPAC commission. Dr. Dolphin Cruz, our chair, was on the commission for 6 years, and now I am in my 3rd year on the FEPAC commission. So we're very invested in improving the quality of students and graduates, both in our program and nationwide, for employment in forensic laboratories. Now, in terms of our master's program, we do feel like it's a distinct advantage that you have broad exposure to all of the different forensic specialties. So we make sure that you take courses in other specialties so that you know how all of the different specialties work with each other. So when you are working in a crime laboratory, the evidence doesn't just come to you in your section. So for example, I was in DNA. The evidence might go to other sections. It might go to fingerprints. It might be a gun that I'm pulling DNA off of, and so it might have gone to the firearms section. It might be blood that toxicology needs to be done on. And so we need to understand the capabilities and limitations and how to work well with the other specialties. And so that's why we find it important that you not only get deep specialization in your concentration, but that you also have an understanding of the other specialties in forensic science. So with that, we have a core curriculum that I'll talk about in just a little bit. But then in your second semester here at VCU, you begin to specialize along one of 4 concentrations. So that's forensic biology, which again is focused mainly on body fluid and DNA analysis, but our medical pathology people go here too. Forensic chemistry and trace, which is focused more on the chemical applications of trace evidence, trace arson, explosives, paints and polymers, whereas forensic chemistry, drugs and toxicology is focused just on drug analysis and forensic toxicology. Finally, we have forensic physical analysis. So this is for people who want to specialize in, for example, firearms, tool marks, fingerprints and impressions, or even if they want to move to a crime scene investigation position. So we also, people who are interested in anthropology also could go into the biology area, or they could go into the physical analysis concentration. And it really depends on what aspect of anthropology you're interested in terms of which concentration we would recommend for you. Another real benefit of our program is that we have very strong ties with several accredited laboratories. The Virginia Department of Forensic Science being primary, of course. You've heard from Linda before you heard from me. We consider that to be a very important relationship. We value it tremendously. Not only do our half of our faculty has come from the Virginia Department of Forensic Science as practitioners before they came here to VCU. We have many alumni, including me and Stephanie, who graduated from here and went on to work at the Virginia Department of Forensic Science. We have research collaborations with the crime lab in multiple areas. And so we consider that to be a really important aspect of our program, but also a tremendous benefit for you as a student that we have such a close relationship. Some of the classes are taught at the Virginia Department of Forensic Science, and you'll see that as we go along. Finally, we are very proud of our postgraduate placement. So over the course of 12 years, consistently every year, 95 to 100% of our students are placed in a laboratory or graduate school within 6 months of graduation. And that even includes this past class who graduated during COVID. So we're very proud of this achievement, and we know it's because we've developed a very good reputation for producing high quality students who are ready to jump in and work in the crime lab. We also have very strong ties with the forensic community at large, not just the crime laboratory, but also other laboratories in the region and throughout the country. We have alumni who are scattered throughout the whole United States, again at the federal, state, local, and private laboratory level. And that allows for really great opportunities for our current students in terms of research opportunities and job searching. Our full-time and adjunct faculty are incredibly enthusiastic about providing an excellent education, getting you the hands-on experience that you need to be an excellent forensic scientist. We bring in guest speakers from all over the country for our seminar series. We've been really excited to have a great lineup of speakers every year for the past several years of nationwide influential forensic scientists, both researchers and practitioners. Our faculty and our students, both graduate and undergraduate, attend national and regional forensic science meetings, both the American Academy of Forensic Science, which is the nationwide association, as well as discipline-specific meetings, such as the Society of Forensic Toxicologists, or SOFT, where we dominated the research presentations this year in the virtual meeting. There are also a lot of opportunities for research. So I'm going to talk in a little bit about the directed research requirement for the curriculum and how that can be on campus or off campus, and how you identify where you want to work. But also students have the opportunity to do a secondary research project in the way of an independent study. Many of our students also work in the faculty members' research laboratories, where they can do their directed research and also be paid either on a part-time basis or as a full-time research assistant. Well, not full-time 40 hours a week, but full-time 20 hours a week plus a student. And sometimes that pays part-time, and sometimes that pays full tuition and a stipend. Now, VCU might be a really large university, and that might intimidate you. We're in the city, we're in an urban setting. Some of you may not be comfortable with an urban setting, and certainly with the Black Lives Matter protests and all of the upheaval that's been going on in cities, that might make you a little nervous. But the fact of the matter is that the campus area is quite safe, and the program itself is very small. So we only take 20 to 30 master's students every year. So right now we have a group of 45 master's students, and that includes both the first year students who just started this fall, as well as the second year students who are graduating in May. So with 12 faculty and 45 master's students, I hope that you can see that it's very easy for us to almost know everybody's faces and know each of you, particularly as you get into your concentration and you're with faculty members that specialize in what you're interested in. So it might be a large university, and there are benefits to a large university. We've got a fabulous fitness center. There's a lot of food options. Richmond is a great place to live. There's a lot to do, even in COVID. And there's great restaurants here. There are really excellent services in terms of, let's say, disability support services. There's career services. So everything you would expect out of a large university, but the real hands-on, small-time focus of a small program such as ours. There are also opportunities outside of the classroom. So we have a couple of clubs. We have a forensic science student club that's open to both undergraduate students and graduate students, and they're very active. They typically have a couple of big events throughout the year. They invite in speakers. So they have gone to shooting ranges to practice shooting and get some ballistics experience. They do service events, they do blood drives, they do all kinds of interesting stuff. There's also a graduate student club that's just for forensic science graduate students. And so there's a lot of ways for you to get involved in the department and with other like-minded students. So now I want to get into a little bit about the curriculum. I want to go over just the basics and give you a chance to see what the program is like and how you might fit into it. So this is a full-time 2-year program. We do have classes during the day and during the evening, and they are all in person. Of course, with COVID, some of the lectures may be online, but all of the hands-on component is still intact, and we still are having laboratories to get you the hands-on experience that you need. This is a 42 credit program. 26 of those credits are core credits that every student has to take. And then there are 16 credits that allow you to specialize in your concentration. Again, we really pride ourselves on the level of laboratory and hands-on experience that you get. I'll talk about that as we go through the courses. And most of the courses are on campus here in the Monroe Park campus. Now, there are some courses for some concentrations that can be on the medical campus, particularly the DNA and the toxicology concentrations can often have classes on the medical campus. And then some of the classes are also at the Virginia Department of Forensic Science, which is only a mile or so down the road and kind of sandwiched between our Monroe Park campus and the medical campus. So it is still on the bus route or pretty close to the bus route so that you can access it pretty easily. So these are the core requirements for the curriculum. There's 26 credits again. So everybody takes forensic science seminar 3 times. You take it typically in your first year, both the fall and the spring semester. And then you take it again in your 3rd year, or your 2nd year, I'm sorry. And you can choose whether you take it in the fall or the spring, whatever fits in your schedule best. Everybody takes statistics. Now there is a forensic science option here that I haven't listed, but that all of the students are eligible to take instead. And that's forensic science 680, I believe. Then everybody takes some type of patterns course. Now, right now that is analysis of pattern evidence 661. So that would be fingerprints and impressions, or it would be 662, which is firearms and toolmark identification. We may have another option for you next year. We're hopeful that that'll go through, but I'm not going to talk about it right now because it's not required as of right now. Then everybody takes forensic evidence and criminal procedure. So the purpose of this course is for you to understand how the criminal justice system works and your role as a forensic scientist and the role of forensic evidence in the adjudication process. Right? Forensic science and forensic science evidence have an important role, but we're not the only player in the system. So it's important that you understand your role and what to do and what not to do to make sure the case doesn't get thrown out. Everybody takes instrumentation and forensic chemistry. Again, even if you're a biologist, it's important that you have an understanding of the background and workings of the other disciplines. So we make sure that everybody takes that. Everybody takes forensic microscopy and the laboratory. This is important whether you're a biologist, a chemist, or a physical evidence analyst. And so everybody takes that. Everybody takes the lecture portion of forensic serology and DNA. Moving on to the laboratory components, if you're a biology concentration person, you're going to take the co-requisite lab for forensic serology and DNA. However, if you're a chemist, whether that's for trace, drugs tox, or if you're a physical analysis person, you take the instrumentation and forensic chemistry lab instead. And this is where we start to specialize just a little bit in the first semester. Everybody takes professional practices and expert testimony. So this is the course that Linda was referring to that she's taught for the past several semesters, along with an attorney who has extensive experience in forensic work and the criminal justice system. This is a really interesting course because you take it in the last semester of your time here at VCU, and you cover not only professional practices, which include quality assurance and quality control, laboratory accreditation, forensic scientist certification, building your CV, applying for jobs, applying for graduate school, but you also take a mock case that you worked on in, you learn about expert testimony, right? You learn the basics of it and what to do and what not to do, but then you also take a mock case that you worked on in your previous coursework. So for DNA people, this would be in the advanced DNA class. For toxicology people, this would be in your toxicology class. Physical analysis, this might be in your advanced crime scene course. You take a case that you've built in your time here at the graduate program, and you're going to testify to it just as you would as a forensic expert. And we actually take you to a courtroom here in the Richmond area, and there's a judge or a retired judge, and we bring in a defense attorney, and we have the faculty create defense expert questions. So it is as close to the real thing as you can get. Finally, everybody does directed research in forensic science. So we are a research thesis-based program, and so this is a large component of your work here at VCU. And I'm going to spend some time talking about that in just a little bit. So everybody takes the core, and then these next couple of slides are the concentrations that you specialize along. So those of you interested in body fluid analysis, DNA analysis, forensic entomology, and some anthropologists, depending on what area you're interested in, you would go for the forensic biology concentration. And so within the forensic biology concentration, you will take, in addition to the core, you'll take FRSC 676, Advanced Forensic DNA Analysis. You'll take 686, which is Emerging Applications for Forensic Biology. You'll take Bio 516, which is Population Genetics. And then you'll take Crime Scene Investigation, Forensic Science 565. You then also will take 4 credits of elective coursework. Now, we typically use these credits to address any deficiencies that you may have for the FBI quality assurance standards. So the FBI's quality assurance standards require that any accredited laboratory that employs a DNA analyst, that DNA analyst has to have biochemistry, genetics, training in statistics, and molecular biology. And so we look at, your advisor will review your undergraduate transcript and make sure that you meet all of those requirements between your undergraduate and your graduate work. And we use that elective coursework to address those standards and make sure you're fully qualified to be employed when you leave here. If you're interested in drug analysis or forensic toxicology, you would take the core, and then you would also take advanced drug analysis, forensic toxicology, and then you would choose forensic medicine or crime scene investigation. For this concentration, forensic medicine is sometimes more appropriate for you to take if you want to be a toxicologist, because you would be interfacing significantly with forensic pathologists and dealing with the body fluids from deceased people in order to conduct your analyses. But you also can choose crime scene investigation. And for those of you who are more interested in drug analysis, this might be your better option. And the reason is that often drug analysts cross-train in, let's say, clandestine lab analysis and removal, and they go to the crime scene. And so crime scene investigation would be an important course for you to take. All right, in addition to those required courses, you also have 7 elective credits. At least one of them needs to be a 500 level or above chemistry course. Again, we're making sure we'll review your undergraduate transcript, and if there are any courses that we think would make you a better candidate for whatever type of position you're looking for, that's what we'll recommend in terms of what chemistry course would be best for you and or what forensic science course would be best for you. For the trace evidence track, you'll take analysis of fire debris and explosives, analysis of paints and polymers, and crime scene investigation. And then again, you'll have 7 elective credits, at least one of which has to be a graduate level chemistry course, to build out and develop your course portfolio so that you're well qualified when you graduate from this program. Now, our physical analysis concentration is much more flexible. We only require that you take crime scene investigation and advanced crime scene investigation. And the rest of your courses are electives. And the reason is that there are a variety of different specialties in this concentration. So you could choose to become a crime scene investigator. You could choose to become a firearms and toolmarks expert. You could choose to become a fingerprint examiner, or even an anthropologist in this concentration, or preliminary to going to get your PhD, because anthropologists typically need their PhDs for a career in forensic anthropology. And so based on that, we have a variety of different electives, including firearms and toolmarks and fingerprints and impressions, and several anthropology courses and entomology courses that will allow you to specialize along the concentration that you are interested in. So here's an example program for what a master's student would take. And now I have not included every concentration. This is the biology concentration. This is a good example of what you would take based on when our courses are offered and how the courses sequence. But regardless of concentration, everybody will take microscopy and lab. Everybody will take DNA, but not necessarily the lab. Everybody would take instrumentation and seminar. And so that's exactly what all of you would be taking in your first semester. The only difference would be that your biologists would be taking the serology and DNA lab, and everybody else would be taking the instrumentation and forensic chemistry lab. In the spring, typically everybody takes seminar and stats, and then we begin to specialize based on the concentration. In the fall, for the most part, everybody's taking something different, except that all of the second year students take forensic evidence and criminal procedure. And then in the spring, I'm missing the professional practices class. It's not in there, but that is the class that everybody takes in the spring. Everything else is typically directed research and elective credits. Now, again, we're really focused on, again, preparing students for a career in a crime laboratory. And because of that, all of our science-based courses in the department have either an integrated laboratory or a required co-requisite laboratory. And I didn't mention that as I went through the curriculum, but you did see it on the slide, hopefully, that almost all of those courses were lecture and laboratory. So we do spend a lot of time in lecture where we talk about the theory and application of the methods, but then we go into the laboratory and we practice those methods, okay? And so it's very important to us that you feel comfortable and competent in those methods before you leave this program. We also have many elective courses. I think I've got it on here somewhere. It might show up after directed research. But 77% of those elective courses have a laboratory component as well. So even though they're electives, that doesn't mean that they're not important to us, and we want you to get that laboratory experience. Finally, directed research. So everybody does directed research in this program. It is a thesis-driven original research project. You usually do not begin it in your first semester here at VCU. You usually begin it in the summer in between your first and second years. Although, that being said, some students do begin in the spring of their first year. This research is student-driven, but faculty-assisted. So as master's students, we typically, the faculty or the laboratory that you're working in will have a project in mind, but you, the master's student, will be responsible for driving that project forward and doing the experimental work as well as the data analysis. So if those of you who have done research at the undergraduate level, it's significantly more than that, but it's not PhD level where you have to come up with the question and the experimental methods yourself. It is faculty assisted in terms of the experimental question and the methods that you're going to use to get there. Now, this research component does have to be forensic science related, but it can be a basic research question, or it can be applied research, such as what you would see in a forensic laboratory. It does have to have some type of original research component that could potentially be publishable in it. But it can be a validation with some original research as well. This laboratory work is supervised. You are expected to do a minimum of 300 hours of work in the research laboratory, which will culminate in a written thesis and an oral defense of your research. And this can be completed either in the crime laboratory or here at VCU in an academic research laboratory. So we have many research faculty here at VCU, and they all have ongoing active research programs. Many of them are funded. And you have that option to stay on campus. You also have the option to go out to a crime laboratory of your choosing, and will assist you in identifying and securing that position so that you can do your research in a crime laboratory. These are just an example of some of the directed research program sponsors that our students have gone to off campus. And so you'll see that it is a mixture of public and private laboratories at the state, local, and federal levels. And we even have had some students go international. We've had students go to Puerto Rico. That's not really international, but it is in the Caribbean, which is fun. We've had somebody go to Switzerland. We've had somebody go to Australia, and Canada. So we've had several students go international. Again, the sky's the limit. Wherever you want to go, we can help you get there as long as they have an opening. If you want to do your research on campus, we have supplied you with in the email that Jo sent, she sent a faculty document that laid out the research specialties of each of the faculty. And so I'm not going to go over them here in the interest of time, but each of us have written out a quick summary in that document of what we're interested in terms of research and our ongoing projects. And so you'll see there's a variety of different topics and areas that you could perform research in, both here and in the forensic science program, and also over on the MCV campus in toxicology. And we have a couple of collaborations in the Department of Physics as well. In terms of outcome for the directed research program, we're very proud of the fact that the research that our students do is real and applicable and used in the field of forensic science. So in terms of presentations, we've had 71 student presentations, whether they're poster or oral presentations, at regional and national forensic science meetings. and over 500 student presentations since 2005. 75% of our students over the past 2 years, our master's students, have presented their work at national or regional forensic science conferences. That number is actually a little low because many of the forensic science conferences in the spring of last year were canceled, and so many of our graduate students were not able to present. In terms of peer-reviewed manuscripts with graduate student authors, we've had 22 original research manuscripts published since 2018 and over 140 since 2005. And for those of you who are familiar with peer-reviewed manuscripts, these are really great for your CV, and they're great for getting a job. Of course, the experience itself is great as well and will make you a better scientist. This is really fabulous that our master's students are conducting real important research in forensic science. In terms of job placement, over 99% of our alumni have a position in forensic science or a related field within 6 months of graduation. And again, this is just a very small subset of the employers who have our alumni employed there. The list is really large, but I just had to pick a subset. Now, I've taken up a lot of time, and we're actually butting up against, no, I'm not. I have 20 minutes. Never mind. We're going to keep on going. Sorry about that. So the next thing I want to talk about is applying and your application. So in terms of researching the forensic science program, obviously you've been able to find the department website in order to register for this. And another real key link I would recommend that you look up is the graduate bulletin. So if you just Google VCU graduate bulletin, we're under the College of Humanities and Sciences, and you can look up the forensic science programs. I can show you that later on after all the tours and the breakout rooms. I can take you to the bulletin and show you that. The bulletin itself is your contract with the university in terms of what's required for you to graduate and what the expectations are for you as a student. Both in the bulletin and our department website, you can find the admissions criteria. So the GPA, we do require the GRE. I can talk about our average scores. I'll talk about those in the next slide. We do require a degree in a natural science. So a bachelor's degree in a natural science is required. And then in terms of coursework, you have to have 8 credits of organic chemistry, and that would be including the laboratory component. And you need 8 credits of general biology, including a laboratory component. And that general biology specifically has to be for some type of science major. It cannot be a gen ed general biology set of courses. Now, there are additional admissions requirements by concentration. So for our chemistry tracks, you have to have 9 additional credits in upper level chemistry. So specifically, we're looking for different courses depending on the concentration. And again, you can find that in the admissions requirements in the bulletin and on our website. For forensic biology, we're requiring 9 additional upper level credits in biology, and 3 of those credits can be biochemistry. We will require that you take biochemistry. We prefer that you take it before starting here at VCU. Honestly, there's not really a good graduate level option here at VCU. There is a graduate level biochemistry, but it's 5 credits and it's every day on the medical campus. So it's a very challenging course to fit in your schedule. If you don't have it when you start here at VCU, we are going to require that you take the undergraduate level class before you graduate. And again, the reason is so that you meet those FBI's quality assurance standards for employment as a DNA analyst. Finally, for physical evidence concentration, we do require 9 additional credits in any upper level science. And again, that requirement reflects the diversity of career paths in the physical evidence concentration. In terms of what we typically see, our average undergraduate GPA is 3.6. That said, we've had students admitted anywhere between 3.0 and 4.0. And so what we're really interested in is how you've performed in the last couple of years versus your freshman and sophomore year, how you've performed in your upper level science courses. Believe it or not, how you do in organic chemistry can come up when you're sitting in the courtroom and the defense attorney challenges your status as an expert because you got a D in organic chemistry. So we want to make sure that you're going to be well qualified and that you're well prepared for the coursework that that you'll have here at VCU. Our average GRE is 309, but again, the range of accepted students is between 298 and 324. So it's a pretty wide range. Writing scores typically are somewhere between 3 and 5. We do have more females than males. It's a 7-to-1 ratio pretty consistently from year to year. Even when I was in the program in 2001, that's a long time ago. Even when I was in the program in 2001, there were more females than males in the program. I don't know what it is about forensic science that attracts more females than males, but it does. And then for our typical breakout of students, we typically take, again, I said somewhere between 20 and 30 students, and that breaks out to 12 biology students, 6 to 10 drugs and toxicology students, 2 to 3 trace students, and 2 to 3 physical analysis students. So when you're thinking about applying to VCU, our application is a common application through the graduate school. So you can get there from the VCU Department of Forensic Science page, but you can also visit the graduate school. This is an entirely online application process. So you can upload your personal statement and your CV and any other supporting documents. Your transcripts typically will come either by mail or electronically directly from the university that you're sending them from. And then your faculty recommendations will be submitted electronically by the faculty. So when you apply and you list your potential recommenders, the system will send them a link to submit their recommendation. So again, most of this is online, and one thing I would say is that when you apply, choose your concentration carefully. And if you need assistance from me or from Joe, our department coordinator, please talk to us, because if you choose the wrong concentration, you essentially have to start a new application for the concentration that you actually want to be in. And when we admit people specifically for the concentration, because we have specific numbers of students that we can take for each concentration. So make sure that you are confident in the concentration that you're interested in, and we're happy to help you identify which concentration is best for you based on your career aspirations. If there are any documents that need to be mailed, this is the address. It's also on the website, or we can send it to you if you just shoot us a message. So this is how we review your applications. So we have a graduate committee of 5 faculty and staff members. Every application is reviewed carefully by at least over over 60%, at least 3 members of the graduate committee, and then the full committee discusses each application and considers all of the criteria based on what you see here. So we have a scoring model where each of these components is assigned a certain number of points. And so we look at an overall point value, but we also take into account specifically references, your personal statement in terms of why you want to be a forensic scientist, why you want to get into that concentration, and why you want to come to VCU, why VCU is the best program for that. We are also interested in your prior laboratory and research experience. So we want to make sure that you understand what laboratory work is and that you're prepared to, you understand what that means for your career moving forward. In terms of your references, I do want to take a second and talk about that. So when you're choosing your references, you really want to choose people who know you well in some type of professional setting. And so with that proviso, I would say at least 1, preferably 2 or 3 of those recommendations should be from faculty members who know you well from your undergraduate university. Now that said, if you're a mature student or you've worked out in the field and now you're coming back to graduate school, certainly one of those references should be from a supervisor or your employer. What we don't want to see in terms of references are family members, people who know you on a social basis, such as pastors, Boy Scout leaders, that kind of thing, because what we're really trying to assess is your work ethic, your academic proclivity, your research, how you function in the laboratory. If you have laboratory experience, please have your PI submit a reference. So that's what we're trying to address. And so you need to be carefully choosing your references wisely to address those aspects of your application. All right. We've talked about the prerequisite coursework. So we will review your transcript to make sure that you meet that required coursework that's in your concentration specific requirements. Finally, this is a rolling admissions process. We start reviewing applications in mid-December. We like to get out decisions before Christmas if we can for those applications that have been completed. And the deadline is March 1st. Now, we do accept applications past the deadline. We don't cut off applications. However, we do have a max number of students that we can take, and that max is based on our class sizes and our teaching laboratory sizes. And so when we reach 24 to 30 students, we're done. And so I always recommend that if you're applying, that you make sure that you meet that March 1st deadline, because we typically have not filled our class yet. But it's possible that we will very soon after that March 1st deadline. Now, if we find that you are qualified and we think that you would do well as a student, and our class is full, we do put students on an informal wait list. And if you're on that wait list, I'll notify you and let you know. I let you know where you are on the wait list and what I anticipate in terms of whether we'll get to you in the wait list or not. We do sometimes have students switch to another program or find that their personal circumstances have changed and they're not going to come. And so we do sometimes move through that wait list depending on the year. In terms of making your decision, I strongly recommend that you visit any program that you're considering attending. And I know that that's challenging in these troubled times. I'm tired of hearing that, but that's challenging to do right now. But I would recommend that you try to visit Even if it's just that you walk around the campus, I'll be happy to meet you downstairs outside with a mask on and talk to you about the program and just kind of show you around the campus. It's important that you kind of understand where you're going and what the facilities are. Make sure that the program that you choose is in line with the goals, with your career goals. So for example, if there's a forensic science program in your state that offers forensic chemistry, but you're a forensic biologist, even though it's in your state, it may not be in your best interest because it won't provide you with the education that you need to specialize along your area of interest. So review the goals, look at the faculty members, see what kind of research they're doing, see what kind of course offerings there are, and make sure that the program goals meet your goals. See what type of research they're performing and where their students go to do research. Whether you choose VCU or not, I strongly, strongly advise that you choose a FEPAC accredited university. That FEPAC status really guarantees that you're getting a science-based education, which is what crime laboratories are hiring for. They're hiring for people with science backgrounds. They can often train people, but you have to have that science background to get in the door. So make sure that they are FEPAC accredited. You can just Google FEPAC forensic science and the FEPAC website will pop up and you can see all of the different accredited universities, both at the undergrad and the graduate level. Of course, you want to check out the financial considerations, make sure that the tuition and cost of living is in your range. See what type of paid opportunities that university has. Make sure you understand how the program is connected to the professional communities, both how the students are connected as well as the faculty. And then of course, career placement options and what is there to do in the area? What are the social activities? What's the town or the city like? Make sure it's something that's gonna jive with you and how you are. In terms of money, I do want to talk about part-time employment as a student here. So most of our students, typically 80 to 90% of them do have a part-time job in addition to being a student. Now we do recommend that you work 20 hours a week or less if you're going to work. And that's because this is a demanding program. And if you choose to work more than 20 hours, we've found that students who work more than that tend to not do as well in their coursework, and that could jeopardize your status because we do have requirements that you maintain a 3.0 GPA and that you get no more than 1 C during your time here. Now, in terms of part-time employment that's forensic science related, over 80% of our past 5 entering master's class has had some type of science-related part-time employment. Now that could be, in some cases, a graduate assistantship. So we grant 4 to 5 graduate assistantships each year that typically provides full tuition and a stipend. Now the stipend isn't a lot, it's, I believe, $12,000 for your 9 months of time, but it is, it's money. And hopefully you can make it work. All applicants are automatically considered for these assistantships. What we're looking for a graduate assistantship is not just excellent academic prowess, which all of our admitted students will have, but also some type of research experience or TA experience so that when you come in, you can hit the ground running in terms of helping the faculty get their laboratory sections going. So our faculty teach all laboratories, but the TAs prepare the laboratories and are also there assisting the faculty. So a TA is not teaching the laboratory all by themselves in the forensic science department. There's always a faculty there providing their expertise and assisting the graduate students. But the GTAs help prepare the lab, set up the lab, clean up the lab, and assist during the laboratory session. Now there's other scientific-based employment for the students who are not granted one of those 4 or 5 GTA slots. We do have hourly positions both in the laboratory and in the department office that are part-time. We have collaborations with the biology and the chemistry department for teaching assistantships, where our students teach 2 or 3 laboratory sections of, let's say, intro to biology or intro to chemistry, and are paid for that. And then the Virginia Department of Forensic Science often also has part-time positions available. And so our students often go over there. Again, it's just a mile or so from campus. And so it's an easy commute, great way to get your foot in the door in a forensic science field. The last couple things I want to talk about are whether you choose to stay here come here to VCU, or if you choose to go on to another program. But remember that a forensic science position is a position of public trust. And so background checks and even polygraphs are commonplace in the forensic science field. So make sure that your social media is clean, that if you have prior convictions, that they're far in the past and you're willing and happy to explain them. If you've had drug use in your past, you're ceasing it and you're not associating with people that would enable you to use drugs. Okay, so drug use is definitely a hot issue, particularly with states legalizing things like marijuana, and Oregon just legalized pretty much everything. But if you're going to work at a federal agency, don't forget that marijuana and other drugs are still not federally legal. And so your prior drug use may count against you if you're applying for a federal position, and some state position, most state positions as well. Make sure that you, really what we're looking for is good moral character. And so relationships, you know, everybody has weird relationships, but make sure that you're conducting yourself in an appropriate manner. Make sure that you're paying your bills. They will pull your credit, and paying your bills on time and not being in excessive debt is important. Student loan debt, I get, they get, that's not what I'm talking about. And then personal values. Again, ultimately, as a forensic scientist, you'll be testifying in court, and for you to be considered a credible expert witness, you have to have good overall moral character. And so any of these potential previous issues could come into play when you're testifying. As a forensic science student, you will be advised by an academic advisor in your specialty. And so that dovetails perfectly into our next section, where we're going to break out into rooms with the forensic science faculty. I will assign you, if you're coming in the fall, I'll be assigning you in the summer to an advisor that meets your career objectives. So we have faculty that specialize in a variety of different areas in forensic science, and so I'll place you with a faculty member that best meets your career aspirations. They'll also advise you on where to go in terms of career goals, assist you in getting your directed research project off the ground or identifying a laboratory, and then advising you on which professional organizations to join. In terms of career advisement, we have a career center that's quite robust. Again, your faculty advisor will provide significant networking opportunities. Your research, hopefully you'll be presenting it, and that also will provide you with networking opportunities. And then that capstone course that I mentioned earlier also assists in developing your CV and your cover letter and getting those career development aspects going. So that's all I have. We don't have time for questions now, but we will after the breakout sessions and tours. So if you have to leave, please leave me a chat in the comments, and I'll definitely chat with you about that. But we're going to move on to our next segment, which is breaking out